How real projects buy time, and how they pay for it, setting the reality. Let me start with a statement that makes people uncomfortable. There is no such thing as catching up a project. When a project is late, what you are really doing is choosing where the pain will go. Time cannot be created. It can only be reallocated, and that reallocation always has consequences. In professional project management, this decision is called schedule compression. Today, we will go far beyond textbook definitions. We will examine what schedule compression truly means, why there are only two legitimate techniques, and how these techniques behave in real projects, not exam questions. If you are a professional, this will help you survive projects. What schedule compression really means. Formally, schedule compression means shortening the project duration without reducing scope. That last part, without reducing scope, is the trap. Because if scope stays fixed, requirements stay fixed. Quality expectations stay fixed, deliverables stay fixed, so something else must absorb the pressure. There are only two places it can go: cost, risk. Any technique that claims otherwise is either naive or dishonest. Why projects actually fall behind. In real life, projects don't fall behind because people are lazy. They fall behind because of optimism bias in early estimates, late stakeholder decisions, hidden technical dependencies, scope clarification disguised as minor refinement. By the time schedule compression is discussed, the project is already structurally late. What you are deciding now is not success versus failure, but controlled loss versus uncontrolled loss. Crashing. Buying time with money. Let's examine crashing. Crashing means shortening the schedule by adding resources to activities that lie on the critical path. Let me be absolutely clear. You do not crash the entire project. You crash only the activities that determine the finish date. Anything else wastes money and creates the illusion of progress. Real-life example 1. Construction project. A university is building a new laboratory building. The critical path includes foundation, structural frame, utilities installation. The project is 2 months late. Crashing options. Add an additional concrete crew, run double shifts. Lease higher capacity equipment. Result: cost increases significantly, schedule improves predictably, risks remain mostly controlled. This is textbook crashing, and it works, because construction tasks scale relatively well with resources. The cost-time trade-off. Professional project managers don't ask, how do we go faster? They ask, what is the cheapest unit of time we can buy? Some activities can be reduced cheaply, others become exponentially expensive. Crashing 1 week may be reasonable. Crashing another week may be irrational. This is why indiscriminate crashing is a sign of weak management. Crashing failure. It project example. Now let's look at where crashing fails. An enterprise software project is behind schedule. Management response. Add more developers. What happens? Onboarding time, increased communication overhead, more defects due to coordination errors. This is Brooks' law. Adding manpower to a late software project makes it later. Crashing works best where tasks are divisible, work is predictable, learning curves are shallow. Crashing fails where knowledge is tacit, work is creative, dependencies are complex. Fast tracking. Borrowing against the future. Now let's discuss fast tracking. Fast tracking means overlapping activities that were originally planned sequentially. You are not adding resources. You are not changing scope. You are saying, we will start downstream work before upstream work is stable. This is not acceleration. This is risk transfer to the future. Real-life example 2. Research project. A university research project receives funding with a strict deadline. The team starts data analysis before data collection is complete, begins writing publications before results are final. Initially, progress looks impressive. Later, data assumptions change, analysis must be redone, papers are rewritten, schedule compression occurred, but rework consumed the gains. Fast tracking didn't save time. It postponed reality. Why fast tracking is so tempting? Fast tracking is seductive because it doesn't require budget approval, it creates visible progress, It delays bad news, executives love it. Sponsors tolerate it. Project managers suffer from it. Fast-tracking failure. Public sector example. A public infrastructure project fast-tracks procurement before final design approval. Later. Design changes, contracts must be renegotiated, claims and disputes emerge. The project technically moved faster, but legally and financially, it slowed to a crawl. Fast-tracking converts schedule pressure into legal and reputational risk. Crashing versus fast-tracking. The real comparison. Let me summarize this brutally. Crashing increases cost, preserves logical order, keeps risk visible. Fast-tracking preserves budget, breaks logical order, hides risk until late. Crashing is controlled pain. Fast-tracking is deferred chaos. How elite project managers decide? Experienced project managers follow 3 rules. Rule 1. Right finger crash first, selectively, on the critical path. Rule 2. Right finger fast-track only work you are willing to redo. Rule 3. Right finger never fast-track without explicit stakeholder risk acceptance, if risk ownership is unclear. Fast-tracking is professional negligence. Exams versus real life. For exams, added resources right-pointing arrow crashing, overlapping activities right-pointing arrow fast-tracking, increased cost right-pointing arrow crashing, increased risk right-pointing arrow fast-tracking. For real life, the question is simpler. Where will the pain appear, now or later? Intellectual takeaway. Schedule compression does not solve problems. It redistributes consequences. Great project managers don't eliminate pain. They decide when, where, and who absorbs it.